Raja Satara Sadasama Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai, Ramacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai, Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinda ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gaur Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham ki Jai, Navadvip Dham ki Jai, Swamaveda Bhaktivinda ki Jai. All glories to the Asmal Lord. All glories to the Asmal Lord. All glories to the Asmal Lord. Thank you very much. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome back to the European Prabhupadanuga Festival 2023. And to our great pleasure, we have His Grace Mahatma Prabhu again talking to us about the wonderful, wonderful, important topic of unity and cooperation. This is fundamental to Srila Prabhupada's teachings. And Mahatma Prabhu highlighted this to us very nicely yesterday when he read through the 9 or 7 purposes of ISKCON. And at least 60% of the instruction there was about cooperation and unity and working together. So thank you so much for coming again, Mahatma Prabhu. And we're very much...
Hey, Prabhupada, thank you, devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. Vaishakapatalu Shakti Pasindu Vyayevacha. Patitanam Pavanavyo Vaishnavavyo Namo Namaha. Yes, the mission of Srila Prabhupada is to fulfill the orders of his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, who wanted a GBC formed and wanted that everybody push the preaching mission in unity and cooperation. And the 7 reasons of ISKCON, we read them yesterday, and like 60% of them, like you said, emphasizes unity and cooperation, sankirtan, togetherness. So this helps us understand the mission of Srila Prabhupada. And without us understanding the mission of Srila Prabhupada, we cannot please him, right? So you should read this to systematically propagate the spiritual knowledge to society at large, to educate people, all people, in the teachings, in the techniques of a spiritual life, in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve real unity and peace in the world. So he was not talking about just unity and cooperation amongst ourselves, but he wanted like the whole world to experience this unity and peace, to propagate the consciousness of Krishna as it is revealed in the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. 3, to bring members of the society together, again, together, with each other and nearer to Krishna, the prime entity, and thus develop the idea within the members and humanity at large. He's concerned about all of humanity. Actually, his Krishna consciousness movement remembers every living entity. This movement is for every living entity to go back home, back to Krishna. That each soul is part and parcel of the quality of Godhead, Krishna, to teach and encourage the Sankirtan movement. Congregational chanting, that is done together again, right? In unity and cooperation, of the holy name of God as revealed in the teachings of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. To erect for the members and society at large, again, concerned about the whole society, a holy place of transcendental pastime dedicated to the personality of Krishna. to bring the members closer together again, right? For the purpose of teaching the simpler, more natural way of life. 7, within the view towards achieving the aforementioned purposes, to publish and distribute periodicals, magazines, books, and other writings. So then in Bhagavatam, there is a verse where Krishna says, I am very pleased with you because of your friendly relationships. And thus I will, Krishna says, I wish you all good fortune for this. And you can ask of me any benediction. So this unity and cooperation is extremely important part of Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada founded the League of Devotees for that, and then later ISKCON, right? Today we're going to read from the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, text 7 and maybe text 8, and their purports. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, grief develops. And from the mode of ignorance, foolishness, madness, and illusion develops. Purport. Since the present civilization is not very congenial to the living entities, Krishna consciousness is recommended. Through Krishna consciousness, society will develop the mode of goodness. When the mode of goodness is developed, people will see things as they are. In the mode of ignorance, people are just like animals and cannot see things clearly. In the mode of ignorance, for example, they do not see that by killing one animal, they're taking a chance of being killed by the same animal in the next life. Because people are not because people have no education in actual knowledge, they become irresponsible. To stop this irresponsibility, education for developing the mode of goodness of the people in general must be there. When they're actually educated in the mode of goodness, they will become sober, in full knowledge of things as they are. Then people will be happy and prosperous. Even if the majority of the people aren't happy and prosperous, if a certain percentage of the population develops Krishna consciousness and becomes situated in the mode of goodness, then there is the possibility for peace and prosperity all over the world. Otherwise, if the world is devoted to the modes of passion and ignorance, there can be no peace or prosperity. In the mode of passion, people become greedy, and their hankering for sense enjoyment has no limit. One can see that even if one has enough money and adequate arrangements for sense gratification, there is neither happiness nor peace of mind. That is not possible because one is situated in the mode of passion. If one wants happiness at all, his money will not help him. He has to elevate himself to the mode of goodness by practicing Krishna consciousness. One engaged in the mode of passion is not only mentally unhappy, but his profession and occupation are also very troublesome. He has to devise so many plans and schemes to acquire enough money to maintain his status quo. This is all miserable. In the mode of ignorance, people become mad. Being distressed by their circumstances, they take shelter of intoxication, and thus they sink farther into ignorance. Their future life is very dark. So in the next verse, text 18, it reads, those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live in the earthly planets, and those in the mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. And then Prabhupada again accents that in the purport there, that if we are not careful, because the mode of passion is in between, right? Ignorance and the mode of goodness, there's always a chance of going into the mode of ignorance, right? And we go into hellish condition of life. Let me read the purport. In this verse, the results of actions in the three modes of nature are more explicitly set forth. There is an upper planetary system consisting of the heavenly planets. There, everyone is highly elevated. According to the degree of development of the mode of goodness, the living entity can be transferred to various planets in this system. The highest planet is Satyaloka or Brahmaloka, where the prime person of this universe, Lord Brahma, resides. We have seen already that we can hardly calculate the wondrous condition of life in Brahmaloka, but the highest condition of life, the mode of goodness, can bring us to this. The mode of passion is mixed. It is in the middle between the modes of goodness and ignorance. A person is not always pure. Sorry about that. A person is not always pure, but even if he should be purely in the mode of passion, he will simply remain on this earth and as a king or a rich man. But because there are mixtures, one can also go down. People on this earth in the mode of passion or ignorance cannot forcibly approach the higher planets by machine. In the mode of passion, there's also the chance of becoming mad in the next life. The lowest quality, the mode of ignorance, is described here as abominable. The result of developing ignorance is very, very risky. It is the lowest quality in material nature. Beneath the human level, there are 8 million species of life, birds, beasts, reptiles, trees, etc. And according to the development of the mode of ignorance, people are brought down to these abominable conditions. The word tamashaha is very significant here. Tamashaha indicates those who stay continually in the mode of ignorance without rising to the higher mode. Their future, again, is very dark. There is opportunity for men in the mode of ignorance and passion to be elevated to the mode of goodness. And that system is called Krishna consciousness. But one who does not take advantage of this opportunity certainly will continue in the lower modes. So devotees, my realization studying about unity and cooperation, right, is that if we don't understand this unity and cooperation, then we cannot get out of the mode of passion. And we are risking going to the lower planets, especially when there is some fighting spirit by the entity in the heart. The demonic entity is in the heart of the devotees and the sage. And that is a very competitive and dominating attitude that manifests, right? And when that happens, then there is fighting. No consideration, no mildness. There is abuse, including of women and children. There's no protection of the cow. And the last leg of the bull, truthfulness, is compromised. So we're asking, when we're acting like that, to go down to the mode of ignorance. And that's not Krishna consciousness, right? So we have to move ourselves to the mode of goodness. And unless we understand the mission of Srila Prabhupada of unity and cooperation, there is no possibility of moving ourselves to the mode of goodness. So that's why it's extremely important. And so this also, he talks about a more simple type of life, right? So every great mystic that I have read their life, they always have some connection with nature. Like the forest of Naimisharanya, right? Pastimes in Mathura and Vrindavan, in the forest, in the river Yamuna, in the Ganges River. Prabhupada would take bath across from Navadvip in Mayapur in the Ganges River. He would take a walk every morning in the nature, right? He would go to West Virginia, to the mountains in the nature. And he spoke of rural communities, right? Living simply. So unless we consider this of unity and cooperation and simplifying our life, as is one of the purposes of ISKCON, there is no chance for us to move out of the mode of passion, and we're risking, again, going down to the mode of ignorance. As we have seen in many, many occasions, the devotees become addicted to some drug or something, or alcohol, or smoking, and they rather face death and go to the mode of ignorance than to give up the addiction. Very, very unfortunate situation. Very dark, as is described here, right? So we have to make a special effort to understand unity and cooperation. There are 41 pages about unity and cooperation at Prabhupadanuga's worldwide.org. Again, Prabhupadanuga's worldwide.org. So we should educate ourselves about this, because it is a mission of Srila Prabhupada. And if we don't understand his mission nicely, then there's no way that we can please him and Krishna. And that we cannot, the lack of friendliness, the lack of togetherness and cooperation will make it so Krishna is not going to be favorably disposed toward us. As I was explaining in that other verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Krishna says, Srimad Bhagavatam 4:38, that being pleased by the friendly relationships amongst you for your mutual friendship, that I wish you all good fortune. That's what we want. When Krishna wishes us good fortune, that's it. We're kind of off the hook, right? And when he says, now you can ask any benediction, right? Then that's what we want. But that will come when we have friendship amongst the devotees and God brothers, unity and cooperation, towards trust and love. Then it will happen. Then we have nothing to worry about. But if we hover in the mode of passion only, then very risky situation, right? So, I urge devotees to please try to go, again, Prabhupadanuga's worldwide.org, in articles. There are 41 pages there about unity and cooperation, where Srila Prabhupada says, if you don't cooperate, you render me useless. We have to make sure we don't render Prabhupada useless, of course, right? Prabhupada says, never take a position of non-cooperation with your God brothers. He says, even if you disagree, you should still cooperate with each other. Like that. So, yeah. But because of pride, right? And that's why, as I shared yesterday, Prabhupada, with a choked voice and tears in his eyes, he said, because he understands we're proud, right? Like a materialist is proud, we're proud. And this pride will lead to great suffering. So Prabhupada knows that, and he doesn't want to see his disciples suffering, of course. So he said, please consider yourself rotten, fallen. What wealth do you have? He said, what is your wealth? What is your power? What is your grandeur? He said like that. No, consider yourself rotten, fallen, he said. And he warned, be careful. You're dealing with Krishna. So we have to have this attitude. Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, he was very apologetic when he wrote the CC. And he said, please, God brothers, don't think that I am thinking I'm somebody special or anything. No, I'm not. I am no better than the worm in the stool, he said. But it's by some force that I'm being forced to do this in my old age, to write this book. But it's not because I have any qualification. I'm a worm in the stool. So if Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami considers himself to be worm in the stool, we should consider ourselves to be a worm in the stool of the worm, right? He's a great, great, great devotee. Of course, we don't come near that level, right? That level, which is that level. There's two things about this higher level that we're very far from. One is that we think that the life of the devotee is more dear to us than our own life. That's explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Exhibited when he was ready to travel to South India to go preaching. He would meet Ramananda Roy, etc. And the devotees were very, very morose. And he said to them, devotees, you should understand my feeling. Your life is more dear to me than my own life. But I have to go preach, right? Like that. So this is what we want. That the life of the devotees is more dear than our own life. And the other characteristic of an advanced devotee is that he feels that he does not have even one drop of pure love of Krishna. So that means that the devotee is extremely humble, lower than the straw on the street. That's the attitude, right? So when we have this attitude, then we're moving away from the mode of passion, the dangerous mode of passion. And then we can cultivate unity and cooperation, friendship, trust, and love. It's so nice to have at least one devotee. It's hard to come by. One or two devotees that you can fully trust, But if you have more, of course, much better. But it's so nice to know that you have some backup, that somebody's, you can count on, somebody you can count on, fully trust. So nice, nice feeling. So that's what Prabhupada wants, trust and love. So educate yourself, devotees. There's no one devotee on the planet that is expert on unity and cooperation. I don't have what it takes to, in a fast way to become expert. So I'm encouraging other devotees to do it that may have better capacity, more qualification. The things that would take to become expert in unity and cooperation, put it into practice towards trust and love. So one other thing I have identified is that Prabhupada, that could help in this regard, is what Prabhupada said about Jayananda Prabhu. Jayananda Prabhu is very little known, and you can learn a lot about him if you go to Jayananda Thakur, The Beautiful Life of Jayananda. Jayananda Prabhu was one of the first disciples of Srila Prabhupada. He was born in a very pious, pure Christian family. Prabhupada says that when you're born in a family of devotees, and then you have a true bona fide spiritual master, you're 50% from Krishna Loka. So Jayananda Prabhu was this type of disciple. He was born in a family of devotees, very honorable, nice, clean Christian family. And then he got Srila Prabhupada as his spiritual master. Let me tell you a little bit about him, because Prabhupada said that we should follow his example, something that also, I don't think there is one devotee in the movement that is doing that, as it should be. Jayananda Prabhu, the first time that he went to the church taken by his family, he was very agitated. He was standing up on the seat and he was looking everywhere. And, so his family members, they said, Jayananda, settle down. I forget his Carmini, Jim, settle down. What are you doing? And Jayananda said, where is God? I'm looking for God. Where is he? Because he understood that in the church, God was there, but he didn't see it. And he wanted to see it. He was just 4 years old. This is a symptom of a great soul. Like Prabhupada, the greatest soul, he showed symptom of devotion at a very early age, 5 years old. He did Rath Yatra. Jesus Christ, at 9 years old, he was impressing the biggest scholars of the temples of Jerusalem with his knowledge about Krishna. So this is a quality of a great soul. In early age, they're interested in God, in Krishna. So he became a mechanical engineer and looking for the truth, soul searching. He heard that in San Francisco, there was a movement, a spiritual movement. So he went to San Francisco. And he was living there and he was visiting and listening to the churches of all the Rinpoches and other gurus and all kinds of people that went through San Francisco. And he was hanging out with some of the hippies of San Francisco and so forth, looking for the truth. But he found that he could not trust anybody. So he got depressed. He tried so much, but he saw no hope. So he decided to commit suicide. He felt if he left his body and went somewhere else, then he would have a better chance of finding somebody that he could trust. So one day he put newspaper in all the holes of his apartment. So if he turned the gas on, it would not escape and he would leave his body. So he was finished doing that and he was going to turn the gas on. And one of his friends called and said, hey, we're going to go eat at such and such a place. You want to come? And then he had the realization, if I do this, then my friends will be very morose. Then he started thinking about his family and so forth. So he abandoned the idea of taking his life and decided to continue to pursue the idea of finding somebody that he could trust. And then voila, he found a flyer that was advertising a lecture by Srila Prabhupada. So he went to the lecture, right? And Jayananda himself describes that the moment that he saw Prabhupada, especially after he heard him some, he said, this man is not going to cheat me. He said like that to himself. He could see that Prabhupada would not shit him. That was the impression that he got the first time that he met Prabhupada. So he kept coming back. He kept coming back to hear more about, from Prabhupada. And became his disciple. And although he was a mechanical engineer, which came very handy later when he built the Rath Yatra carts, he drove a taxi to make a living, to pay his bills and so forth. So one devotee one time asked him, Jayananda, you have a degree that you could get a great job and get incredible money. Why are you driving a taxi? And he said, well, I don't belong to the crowd. He knew, he could see that professional people generally are very proud, right? So he didn't want to be, he wanted to be with the simple people. And since he had a service attitude, I've driven Uber part-time for 8.5 years. So I can identify, if you have a service attitude and you're a little patient and tolerant, you can drive and you can make some money. At that time, I think that if you drove a taxi, you could make the money that any engineer made. Now things have changed, but yeah. And it gives you the freedom, right? So when he became temple president in San Francisco, he would just go and work, and then time to go cook for the deities, time to go on the altar, time to cook for the devotees, time. So it's a flexible job. So he could stop, and serve the devotees. When he took the devotees to do Sankirtan at the airport, then he would do a little taxi driving between the temple and the airport, like that. And he would raise the funds to maintain the temple. That was the main source of income, right? And in this way, when he found out that Prabhupada needed money to print his books, he had saved $5,000, and he gave $5,000 to Prabhupada. So one time, Jayananda Prabhu was walking in some park, famous park, Golden State Park or something. I understand, I forget now, but he went on a walk, morning walk with Prabhupada and other devotees. And one devotee asked Prabhupada, so who was the first devotee that started distributing your books? Who was the first book distributor? And Prabhupada turned to Jayananda and asked Jayananda, who was the first book distributor? And very humbly, Jayananda responded, I don't know, Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, you are the first book distributor, because you are the first one that gave me $5,000 to print my books. So Jayananda was the first book distributor. So once I read, if you go to Jayananda Thakur on the internet and read, just all nectar about the life of Jayananda. So I read it somewhat. I've been there a few times and read as much as I can, took a few notes. I was very impressed. And so I've had the opportunity a few times to meet people, devotees that met Jayananda personally. So I asked them. One of them was a lady that was supposed to become Jayananda's wife. I asked, so in a few words, who was Jayananda? The lady said, Jayananda is humility personified. So if we understand humility, that means that Jayananda knew nothing except Prabhupada. That's what it means, to be humble. He's totally intoxicated by the transcendental dust of the lotus feet of Prabhupada. Like that. One time, one devotee asked Jayananda Prabhu, how do I become advanced? Many devotees are like obsessed with becoming advanced, right? I guess we're supposed to be obsessed with becoming advanced, but I don't think much about it, you know. I never have really. But they asked Jayananda this, and Jayananda responded, Prabhu, I have no idea. All I know, I'm supposed to serve Prabhupada. That's it. So he gave the answer there. This is how you become advanced, by knowing nothing except Prabhupada, right? And trying to serve him with love. Jayananda had this quality, I've been told by another devotee, you know, Janaspriya Prabhu, who preached to me in September of '77 and convinced me to join in San Diego. He said that Jayananda had this quality that he could be with all kinds of different type of people, sannyasis, other god brothers, or street people, or new bhaktas, or karmis, and he had this quality that he came across as always less than the people around him. That everybody around him was superior to him. He had this quality, very difficult, very amazing quality. You know, that's how he was, very, very meek and humble. Yeah. And one other quality is that Jayananda kind of hid, you could say, from Prabhupada. When Prabhupada came to the temple, you know, there was all the sannyasis and all the big devotees to be as close as possible to Jayananda, to Prabhupada and so forth, but Jayananda was nowhere to be seen. Until Prabhupada would ask, where is Jayananda? The devotees would say, well, Prabhupada, he's fixing the brakes of a van out in the driveway. Oh, I see, tell him to come. So Jayananda would go and take a shower and appear very, very meek, very, very humble before his spiritual master. I've been meditating about this, and I think that Jayananda felt ashamed to be in front of his spiritual master because he felt that he did not have one drop of pure love of Krishna. So he just, and he knew that just so much work needed to be done. So even when Prabhupada was there, he would not show up until Prabhupada called him, you know, and then he would come before. And Prabhupada would pump him up. And Prabhupada would say, oh, look at Jayananda. He's like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, very stout. And one time, Jayananda fell to sleep in the class. And generally, when anybody falls to sleep on the class, Prabhupada would say, sit properly. Or he would say, stand up, you know, like that. He would not allow anybody. So Jayananda fell to sleep in the class, and one devotee was going to wake him up, and Prabhupada said, no, leave him alone, like that. Let him rest. Like that. So, but interestingly, the devotees that were there, they related later that Jayananda had some sort of super consciousness. It might have been as simple as like he read the verse and the purport and so forth, but the devotees were convinced that the way, because later on, Jayananda would discuss through the day the lecture that Prabhupada had given. And they realized that although he was asleep, he had heard the whole lecture. He had understood the whole lecture. So it appears to me that Jayananda is part of a highly evolved spiritual technology that we know very little about. And I have other reasons to think that way that I'll share later. So Jayananda, it can be said that he is the personification of unity and cooperation, Amos, the God brothers and sisters. He gave prasad. One devotee one time left, right? And he became a butcher. Most devotees I know, and probably in my own case, if somebody came and then left and became a butcher, I say, oh, what a rascal, nonsense, you know. something like that, but not Jayananda. Jayananda would make sure that he would go visit that devotee in the butcher shop and give him prasadam. So then he would cook for the devotees. He'd draw the devotees to the Sankirtan, to do Sankirtan at different spots, the airport, etc. Brought them prasadam, would drive the taxi in between. All felt totally satisfied and protected when with Jayananda. He was most fond of prasadam. He would say, one devotee one time was like almost totally asleep. One devotee relates that Jayananda went up to him, hey, Prabhu, Prabhu, Prabhu. And the devotee, what? And I said, check this out. It was prasadam. And the devotee would look, open your mouth. And the devotee would open his mouth, and Jayananda would put a whole samosa in the devotee's mouth. So Jayananda was humorous, because he was jolly. Equal to all and jolly is a symptom of an advanced devotee. So, yeah. He was, he worked, he went to sleep, the last one to go to sleep and the first one to wake up, right? All the time. And devotees were like amazed that they would come in from working in the carts at 1 a.m. and they all just wanted to just go to sleep, right? And Jayananda would go out and finish his rounds before going to sleep. And then he would still wake up before anybody else. So these are some of the pastimes and characteristics of Jayananda. One time he was with a bhakta in New York. The bhakta, was very proud to be serving with Jayananda because he had heard that Jayananda was a very, very true devotee. So he was very proud to be helping him building the carts. He had Donald Trump. He convinced Donald Trump, the president, ex-president, to allow him to use part of his property. And so he was working there, and then he would come to the class and then go back to the yard to work. And so they were in class, and the devotee giving the class was about how we're all very spaced out and we have to rectify ourselves. And this bhakta was thinking, well, not Jayananda and I, we're like working really hard. We're like, I'm with the topmost devotee here, and obviously he's not as spaced out. He was thinking like that. But at the end of the class, Jayananda turned to him and said to this bhakta, Prabhu, let's go to work. I am the most spaced out of all the devotees, so we have to go to work. So, yeah. And it was all very sincere, very genuine. Devotees say like that he, it was not some false thing. No, he actually felt it. He said, I am the most spaced out. Let's go and work for Prabhupada. So, yeah. One time, Jayananda was leading kirtan. He would take the devotees out on Harinam. And there was a drunk. And the drunk was bothering the devotees, So it got to the point that Jayananda had to step in. And he told the drunk. And all the devotees were very, very surprised. He told the drunk, dear sir, you must stop now to bother the devotees. You cannot bother the devotees, okay? Look, if you continue bothering the devotees, guess what? Krishna is going to kill you. He said like that. All the devotees were like very surprised. And the drunk was, whatever. He didn't stop. He kept bothering the devotees. Next thing you know, he misstepped on the sidewalk. He fell on the street, and the bus went over his head and killed him. So the devotees were amazed that Jayananda had that vision that this may happen. With urgency, he said, "Don't do this because Krishna will kill you." But he didn't obey that drunk. Jayananda, of course, got leukemia, and he had lumps under his arms and up at the top of his legs, and he was in a lot of pain. But when he came to Rath Yatra, like, all the pain would go away, and he would make those carts anyways. In fact, when he took part in the Rath Yatra in New York, he danced 54 blocks, dancing non-stop. And at one time, the brakes of the cars were not working. So it was urgent. Only Jayananda would know how to do this. So somebody said, "Jayananda, the brakes of the carts are not working." And Jayananda said, "I am in ecstasy." He knew that he couldn't do anything about it. So he told the devotees, "Prabhus, I cannot do anything about it. I am in ecstasy right now." Although he had this cancer all over his body. So I think it was that same Rath Yatra. They had huge, solid wood, hardwood deities of Lord Jagannath, Subhadra, Baladev. And they were taking, I don't know if they were like I think they were taking the deities down from the cart, right? And something happened where the devotees couldn't get the deity, couldn't handle it, and the deity was falling down. And Jayananda got under the deity and held the deity all by himself with no problem. The devotees were amazed. It was like an elephant holding the deity. They said, this is totally supernatural, because no one man, no matter how strong, could hold his deities, but Jayananda did it. So everybody loved Jayananda. The karmis, the drunkards, the devotees, everybody loved Jayananda. There was one lady, I'm not sure whether it was New York or San Francisco, but I thought it was New York, I think it was San Francisco. This lady was in charge of the permits, right? You need permits to do a festival and so forth. And Jayananda dealt with her every year. These permit people, I do a little real estate, they're difficult to deal with. They're cold-hearted, you could say, or they are mean, they're hard, And so when Jayananda passed away, however, this lady asked, "And where is Jayananda?" And the devotee said, "He passed away." And that lady started crying. Like a river of tears as she went away from the counter into her office. So that is how Jayananda touched the lives of people. He led incredible kirtans. One example, here they are in Donald Trump's yard, which is like an abandoned train station with rails and wood and, construction equipment and a locomotive there. And, and there he was building the carts, right? So he had hammer, he had a screwdriver, he had whatever, shovel, he had other tools and stuff like that, and some plastic buckets and things like that. He had no instruments or nothing, but he would say, "Okay, devotees, time for kirtan." And he would give a a hammer to somebody, he would give a screwdriver, and then they would beat the things together, and the plastic can bucket would become the miranga, and they would have the most incredible kirtan. I've talked to devotees that were there. They said it was just incredible. They were totally transported to the spiritual world in consciousness. Very spontaneous. So this is Jayananda. Incredible personality. He was highly respected by some of the top preachers, One time, Anubhavananda Prabhu, who has lived with me for 5-6 years, who wrote about 5,000 poems about Krishna and Prabhupada, amazing personality. He told me that one time he saw Danavir. Danavir was reputed to make many, many devotees. When I met Danavir, he was in charge of the Bhakta program in LA. He was famous for making new devotees and training them and all that. Highly regarded in the movement because of that. And one time, the phone rang and Danavir answered. And he said, Prabhu, it's Jayananda. It's Jayananda, man. I mean, to get a call from Jayananda was like to get a call from Krishna. That was, yeah. These are top devotees. They appreciate it. They knew that Jayananda was extremely special. And to get a call from him was, it sure made your day. So, yeah. And Jayananda, he got it done. Whatever he needed, he would pick wood from the street and construction sites. He would dumpster dive and come out with, things that he could use to build the Rath Yatra carts and so forth, right? And one of the things he did in New York is that he had a very old truck. Like the devotees would get in and he would be driving and they would see the pavement going. There was holes on the ground, But not only that, the truck didn't have an accelerator. There was no accelerator wire or anything. So Jayananda designed a system to have a string or some wire or something attached to his toe. And with that, he would accelerate, He would accelerate. And the devotees say that he was such an incredible taxi driver, right? So he would drive this huge, ugly old truck in this way with that thing attached to his toe in the traffic of New York. And the devotee they just couldn't conceive how he would just come like an inch from the other, but he never hit anybody or anything. He was expert driver. And he would make anything old, rotten trash, he used it in Krishna's service. So Jayananda got progressively more sick, and he had to go to the doctor. They went to San Diego. From San Diego, they crossed the border to Tijuana. I had the good fortune that the devotees that took Jayananda to Tijuana, to the clinic for alternative treatment, right? They're the ones that preached to me. And they told me that when they went there, they went into this clinic, although it was Tijuana, which is like third world country, you could say. The clinic was very, very nice, very clean, very, like it looked like a nice hospital from USA, right? And Jayananda went in there and said, oh my God, look at this place. Oh, look at this bed. Wow, because he slept under the van or something, he was like full of grease all the time, very dirty, all turned up overalls and, like that. So he was used to that. He was not used to a very, very clean place, a comfortable place to sleep, right? I said, wow. I said, wow. And he said, no, this is too good for me. No. This bed is too nice. So he made an altar for Prabhupada in the bed and he laid on the floor. And the devotee said that he did it with such heart, with such honesty, there's nothing they could do. He said, no, this bet is for Prabhupada, not for me. So a little before he passed his body, left his body, he sent $5,000 to Prabhupada. I think that part of that money was collected by him. I think his family gave him some money also, but he sent it to Prabhupada. He said, what is the use of this body, which is waste now, something like that? Please, Prabhupada, you take this money. So Prabhupada wrote back and said, Jayananda, if you need this money back, I will send it back to you immediately. So he never requested for the money back and left his body right around Mangalartik time, auspicious time, across from the temple in New Dwarka in Los Angeles. So this was on May 1st of 1977. On May 5th, Srila Prabhupada wrote a letter. At the end of that letter, he's talking to Jayananda in the letter. And he's saying, Jayananda, in your case, because you were listening to the holy name, you have gone directly to Krishna Loka without any doubt. Prabhupada said that in that letter. And then he sent another letter to many devotees on May 11th of 1977. And he said, no, he has said, he is my ideal disciple. I am so proud to have such a disciple. Like that. So he said, put his picture on every Lord Jagannath cart at every Rath Yatra all over the world. That's very significant. To have Jayananda ride with the Lord in the cart. Very significant instruction. You should do that. And he said, you should have a date for him. That means Vaishnava calendar. Have a date for him to celebrate his going back to Krishna Loka. So this is very significant. Why? Because the Vaishnava calendar is reserved only for siddhas or perfect devotees. So when Prabhupada gave this instruction, it's proof that Prabhupada considered Jayananda Prabhu a perfect devotee. That means no tinge of material contamination, right? So this is the only devotee that I know of that Prabhupada, gave a confirmation like that he was perfect is Jayananda, nobody else. And in the same letter, Prabhupada said, everyone should follow the example of Jayananda. That's an order. So unity and cooperation toward trust and love and following the example of Jayananda are orders from Prabhupada. And if we don't follow these, we're committing Vaishnava aparad. If we continue with Vaishnava aparad, then we go to the mode of ignorance, right? Jayananda, I am convinced that Jayananda now, by devotees that are somewhat receptive to his life, to his example, who learn about him and so forth, that you may realize that Jayananda, as I said earlier, is part of the most high and sophisticated spiritual technology. Why? It's been years, 10 years or more. Well, yeah, I started the Prabhupada family reunion in '96, so it's been a long time that I've been trying to get devotees to unite and cooperate. And the devotees were not receptive, They were kind of laughing at me inconceivably, some of them. They were using me and going against me so they could link up with the one that had a lot of money and power and that type of thing. And I was like shocked, Nobody was receptive. some of them later told me that they thought I was making it all up. And so I can understand that, they thought that, but yeah, so I'm Latin, French, Spanish, born in Chile. They say that there was some fight between the Devas and the Asuras in the sky, and then some of the blood fell on Chile of some of the Asuras. That's where I come from. It's like a little hard to live with myself at times, right? So I got angry. I'm very tolerant and patient, but then I get angry. Spanish genes or whatever they come. I got angry with these devotees, and I was saying, how could they not, follow this unity and cooperation that Prabhupada wants? They would say, Prabhu, just join one of the groups, and that's it. There's nobody. This devotee is not going to be. I am not going to be under the same roof with this other devotee. It's never going to happen. So I said, but Prabhupada wants this. He wants it all together, right? So no, so I got angry. I was really angry at these devotees. I was saying, how could they do this? Oh my God, foolish nonsense like that, And yeah. And one day in the midst of this time, I woke up in the morning before I opened up my eyes, and I realized I'm waking up, and I realized that I'm praying with all my heart for these devotees that I was angry toward, I just said, what is this? What is this? I don't pray whether I'm asleep or alive for anybody at that time. I didn't pray. Very self-centered and so forth. So I said, what is this? I was praying with all my heart for these devotees that I was so angry about. And then Jayananda came in my mind. And I became convinced that Jayananda was doing this. He was doing this. He was saying, he had me praying for my godbrothers. That's what it was, in my deep sleep. So that's what makes me believe that he is part of a highly evolved and sophisticated spiritual technology that we know very little about. I put on Facebook, Prabhus, I had this experience. If any of you, after you read about Jayananda, you have an experience like a supernatural mystical experience, please let me know. I want to know, hear what happened, what experience you had. Nothing happened, nobody responded, but unrelated, somebody that didn't read my plea, later on, months later, I saw him relate. He said, I was about to commit suicide, and I read about Jayananda. And after I read about Jayananda, I'm following all the principles. I'm chanting 16 rounds. I'm getting up for Mangalarati. I'm preaching. I'm like, everything is resolved. So I'm hoping that we can do a memorial. Even a small memorial was rejected by Mayapur. They had to do it somewhere outside the ISKCON property in Mayapur. Somebody wanted to erect just a foot square by maybe 5-6 feet tall, but nobody was receptive to that. They didn't want it. I've asked Prabhupadanuga that built $10 million temple, have something for Jayananda. You build this temple near where he preached. You should do this. Just be good. No reception. Wikipedia, only like this much about Jayananda. So we have work to do. We have to learn about Jayananda, because I am convinced that there's no way we're going to get any unity or cooperation if we don't understand the mission of Prabhupada and we don't follow the example of Jayananda. We're going to keep on the mode of passion and risking going into ignorance if we don't take this seriously, right? So I'm hoping to establish a nonprofit corporation and start building some little memorial for, hopefully, for Jayananda, maybe, something nice that we can ship to around the world for devotees that want to remember Jayananda and the relationship that he had with Prabhupada. And I think that, you know, it would be good to have a picture of Jayananda at all the Riddhic ceremonies. Just a picture there, you know, because we're all there, the priest is there, etc. Those being in, having the ceremony and getting the name are there. Prabhupada is there, and not Jayananda. To me, it does not make sense. So I'm encouraging devotees to have just humbly a picture at the feet of Prabhupada, as I have here, of Jayananda, right? We have to make consciousness of Jayananda because the order is we have to follow the example of Jayananda. Thank you so much, and I'll open up now for questions or comments.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me, Prabhuji?
I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you so much for such wonderful glorification of Jayananda Prabhu, and also a direction using him to direct us towards the kind of unity and cooperation that Srila Prabhupada wants. A quick little suggestion for you, actually, because I really appreciate and attracted to the love and the connection you have to Jayananda and Jayananda's relationship with Prabhupada specifically. Please think about writing a book about either Prabhupada and Jayananda or just Jayananda, because, you know, like always, our principle is books will last and books will preach. So,
yeah, well, very, very good suggestion. I wrote a movie that I think in time is going to get made. It may become a book, etc. I had a supernatural experience with that when I was debating how many pages the script should be, in my little computer mystically appeared 108. So the script is 108 pages, but there are already books and there's already websites, and we are working. Krishna Kishore Das Prabhu, the president of our Sangha based in Mexico, he has the domain Jayananda Prabhu. He's expert in computers, and we're making a website in as many languages as possible, based on other websites and the books about Jayananda for devotees too. So we're already working that indirectly, you know. But for me to write a book is unlikely. I think that those are road books were closer to Jayananda than I am. And then I trust that the website is going to help a lot. And so I would love to do it, but I know, you know, I know myself. I know what I can do, what I cannot do, my capacity, all the projects that I have, and so forth. So it's unlikely I'll be able to do that. But I invite you to go to Jayananda Thakur. That alone is going to help you a lot. Later on, you can go to our website, jayanandaprabhu.com, and there are books available already. Yep. But my idea is to have like a little memorial, a physical place where devotees can come and learn about Jayananda and that mood of relationship between Jayananda and Srila Prabhupada. Also make maybe marble little, you know, memorials that can be shipped around the world to different centers, something like that. I have that idea. So I'm working towards that. So yeah, I would love to be, you know, more capable, have more capacity, know how I'm a low-tech person and so forth. So yeah, I do take care of a senior godbrother. By the way, I think that Anubhavananda Prabhu, you're here. Maybe you can take the mic and relate to the devotees your experience with Jayananda, because you had some brief but very significant interaction. I would urge you to share that with the devotees because it's extremely sweet.
Hi, Bo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Hi, Bo,
you.
can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can hear you.
we can hear you.
Well, I remember many years ago, I joined in 71. I was in Berkeley, and some devotees were asked me to go and join some other devotees to help Jayananda work on the Rath Yatra cart. So I went outside, and immediately I was really blown away by Jayananda. He just, you can just tell by looking at him that he's very special, you know. Some people are like that. They just stand out in a crowd, and he was like that. And I remember following him through the street to the Rath Yatra cart, and it was one of the few memories that I have that really stands out, because I remember it just felt like I was in the spiritual world. I felt like I was in Vrindavan following him. Then when we got to the site where the cart was, he was up on a ladder, and I remember him asking me, "What is your name?" So he really appears that he had an interest in all the devotees. He really cared about all the devotees and wanted to know about them. Was that kind of person. Then another time I remember I was outside, and I was walking towards the road, and I saw Jayananda. I don't even remember why I was even out there, but I remember though that seeing Jayananda, and he was working the lights, you know, distributing back the Godheads to the cars, and we're just running through the street, really fired up, distributing back the Godheads. And he came up to me and said, "Will you watch this box for me? Watch this box of books for me." So he engaged me in devotional service, and I think that was one of the qualities of Jayananda. He knew how to engage anyone that he saw in devotional service, even me, very fallen soul. And then there's a time that Mahatma just mentioned, when I was in the temple, and I remember Donovan answering the phone and said, "Jayananda's on the phone," and he was really very excited when he, you know. So Jayananda was really popular with even devotees that were glorified by Prabhupada. This Donovan, Prabhupada actually, I believe, called him Mr. Enthusiasm. He called Donovan Mr. Enthusiasm, because he used to organize all kinds of places for devotees to go and distribute prasadam and give lectures. He was good at that kind of thing. So that's what, and those are just a few moments I can remember Jayananda. But Mahatma, you really brought him to me when you were talking. I really feel like I know Jayananda a lot more just by, I feel like I'm not getting his association just by listening to you. So thank you very much. And my obeisances to all the Prabhus there. Our glories to your service. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Anubhavananda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Anubhavananda Prabhu, thank you so much for that. Just before we take another question, because there's a few questions lined up, I want to read that made a letter for all the devotees.
Oh. Jai, Hari Hari Bol.
Nice picture of him. And this is written, as Mahatma Prabhu already mentioned, after Jayananda Prabhu left his body. So this is a letter on the 5th of May, 1977. Interesting. Look how personal Prabhupada is. Jayananda already left his body, and Prabhupada's writing a letter. And Prabhupada's writing a letter to him. Isn't that great? So Prabhupada writes, "My dear Jayananda, please accept my blessings. I am feeling very intensely your separation. In 1967, you joined me in San Francisco. You were driving my car and chanting Hare Krishna. You were the first man to give me some contribution, $5,000, for printing my Bhagavad Gita. After that, you have rendered very favorable service to Krishna in different ways. I so hope at the time of your death, you were remembering Krishna. And as such, you have been promoted to the eternal association of Krishna. If not, if you have any tinge of material desire, you have gone to the celestial kingdom to live with the demigods for many thousands of years and enjoy the most opulent life of material existence. From there, you can promote yourself to the spiritual world. But even if one fails to promote himself, so he's talking to all of us also at the same time in this. But even if one fails to promote himself to the spiritual world, at that time he comes down again on the surface of this globe and takes birth in a big family like the yogis or the brahmanas or an aristocratic family, where there is again chance for reviving Krishna consciousness. But as you were hearing Krishna Kirtan, I am sure that you were directly promoted to Krishna Loka. And Prabhupada gives the Bhagavad Gita text 4.9, which he goes on to say, Krishna has done a great favor to you, not to continue your diseased body, and has given you a suitable place for your service. Thank you very much. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, Hari Bol.
Yeah. So
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Yeah, my pleasure. I mean, this again, of course, we're highlighting, whenever devotees deal with anybody, it highlights two things. Jayananda as a devotee, and also a devotee of a devotee, and Prabhupada's relationship and loving dealing with him. Such a wonderful personal dealing. And this is fundamental. This is fundamental part of this desire to create more unity and cooperation, is when we see how Srila Prabhupada dealt with many, many different devotees in many, many different ways, in many different circumstances. And especially, a lot of time we try to jump up on Prabhupada was like this, like that, like black and white. But there's a lot of personal association and a lot of personal examples that we got to know, we got to read about how Prabhupada dealt with different people in different circumstances, where Srila Prabhupada actually manifested his personal interaction, which was, let's say, different from just being, let's say, standard or the standard way. And that's part of our personalistic philosophy. So to see and have this wonderful example of how Prabhupada loved and appreciated his Jayananda is a great example for us. Yeah. Can I ask you a question, Mahatma Prabhu?
Sure.
There's a question from one of the local devotees here, who's come all the way from Hungary to be with us, Vaikuntha Prabhu. So, Ishvara Prabhu. Ishvara Krishna. Ishvara Krishna Prabhu. He's here. So I'm reading his question. You said that Krishnadas Kaviraj identified himself as a worm in the stool. How should we follow this? I think that if we try to think about ourselves artificially like that, it could transform us to sahajas. But in the other hand, it's also not good if we don't try at all. So to gain this Trinada Pisunichena mood, Ishvara Krishna Prabhu is thinking, if we try to imitate that, we look like sahajas, but if we don't do it, that's bad also. So what's the correct way to try to cultivate this humility?
I know nothing about it, Prabhu, really. I just generally, right, I just know that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami considered himself like that, and made me think that if he feels that way, then we being so much less than he is, that we should consider ourselves, a worm in the stool of the worm. And we should consider what Prabhupada said, that we should consider ourselves rotten, fallen, right? So, of course, if we do it artificially, there's no use, right? So, but you would have to ask somebody that is has more understanding on this,
Well, one sentence
just try to be humble. One other thing is that we have to teach by example, and that means be acharya, set a good example. That means that if we're not qualified for a position, then we should not so readily take that position, right? Ideally, not take the position unless it's an emergency and, the devotees are all asking you to do it. But other than that, take your humble position from where you are in Krishna consciousness and try to help those devotees that are taking the lead, right? More that you consider them more advanced than you. In the case of Jayananda, he considered everybody more advanced than, so that's the goal. But, one time Prabhupada was asked, I heard this lecture where Prabhupada was asked, it was about Narada Muni being Siddha, perfect, right? So a devotee asked Prabhupada, so regarding your average follower, how long is it going to take for your average follower to become perfect like Narada Muni? And Prabhupada said, hundreds of thousands of lives. I think that applies more for those first devotees, because Prabhupada said that, the second generation is going to be better and the other one is going to be better. But those, considering all the offenses against Prabhupada and so forth, yeah, that we're talking about 50 million years. So it's a gradual process. We cannot go from being puffed up, full of ego, lusty, greedy, mad, and so forth, to consider ourselves to have zero love for Krishna, which is the symptom of a very advanced devotee. It's going to take, for most of us, going to take lifetimes. That I can tell you. And in this case, when Prabhupada, or the whole philosophy, right, that you have to follow an example, like earlier in the class from Maharaj from Bangalore, he said that you have to follow an expert person in that particular ras, right? So here, for us to become humble like that, Prabhupada is saying, follow the example of Jayananda. That's very, very convenient, very practical, because somebody that was amongst us not long ago, and that devotees met, that devotees talk about, that devotees have written about, right? So that is, I think, for practically for all of us, because Prabhupada said everyone should follow the example of Jayananda. That would be the most practical way to consider ourselves in a non-artificial way, to be humble, to genuinely be humble. If we follow the example of Jayananda, so what it takes is to learn about him, right? Yeah, when you're going to be blessed when you go to anybody that goes to JayanandaThakur.org and you start reading, all the devotees, Kalakanta Das, for example, who is here in Gainesville in Florida. He writes a lot about Jayananda and many other devotees, and it's just so sweet. It's just, remember when we used to talk a lot about nectar, this nectar and that nectar. So this is definitely all nectar about Jayananda. So it's easy to drink, right? Nectar, something sweet, it's easy to take. So that's favorable for us. And then we would become very, very humble, like Krishna consciousness requires in order for us to go back home, back to Godhead.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer. I just want to add one little thing for you to that, is actually, rather than artificial imposition, Srila Prabhupada gives us one sentence, which is actually also very wonderful for our unity and cooperation. And it said, if we just realize that we do not own anything, nothing belongs to us, everything belongs to Krishna. If you can realize that, build that in your consciousness, because it's true, it's just realized fact. It's not. So when we realize that, we'll be humble, we'll be able to cooperate, and we'll be able to unite. So just to realize nothing belongs to them.
Thank you, Prabhu, for helping with that, definitely makes total sense. But I'm not qualified. There's other devotees. There's one devotee I respect a lot because of all his knowledge and his humble attitude. That's Harikata Prabhu from, he's in Mayapur now.
We
Originally,
asked
Trinidad. We have him give class every 6 weeks. He gives a class in English on a Sunday. So a devotee like that could give you more than what I can give.
Okay, can I ask you one more question? There may be more on the way, but I want to ask you, in Prabhupada's time, it seems like, you were there and you felt it or whatever, but it seems like
I was not there when Prabhupada was. I came in September of 1977, and he passed away in November 14 of 1977. Sometimes I think he might have passed away because I joined. I don't know. But yeah.
Okay,
No,
so then, all right, share with us your view and feeling about this. Seems like in Prabhupada's time, we have to say also he was the singular and only Acharya and Diksha Guru. So is that the answer? Is that in Prabhupada's time there seems to be more love and trust and cooperation, tolerance, putting yourself second or third or fourth, and Prabhupada first and his mission first with devotees, whereas nowadays, and especially let's focus on ourselves, on the Prabhupadanuga sanghas around the world, we seem to have a whole lot less appetite for unity and cooperation or love and trust principles. So can you shed some light on what was there then, what is not there now, what's missing, and how we can get it back?
Well, yes and no, I could say, because although you're right that there was more brotherhood and so forth, more meekness, more humbleness, being more honest, straightforward, and so forth, having very nice gostis once a week of everybody included, and we all discuss and we give sankirtan results and try to solve problems, to strategize for preaching and so forth. Prabhupada said as early as 1970 that there was a great conspiracy, sinister, Prabhupada called it a great sinister, he called it movement, actually, as early as 1970, Prabhupada said there is a great sinister movement that has entered our society. So on the one hand, you're right. On the other hand, Prabhupada was fighting this sinister movement, and he was warning devotees. He said, you should expose it or totally neglect it. That means that everybody can do something, because some devotees, in order to expose some of the gross violence against Prabhupada and his followers, including children, you have to have a little Kshatriya spirit, right? But not everybody has Kshatriya spirit. Women are not required to be like, how you say it? What's the word for that? When you are like exposing, like, right? Women will not expose. Maybe brahmanas, other more shy devotees, little Kshatriya spirit. You cannot expect them, but they can still warn their family and friends that they trust, right? And they can also always totally neglect, right? So yes, there was, I could see that, and that's why I joined, and I could see that brotherhood and so forth. But there was also that current of a great sinister movement.
I wanted to stay away from that, actually. So more to the positive side of what was there that helped them have this love and trust and cooperation unity, and why it's not with our Prabhupadanuga groups. We have a problem with that, and what do we need to do actually to kind of
I think that there is we overemphasize our difficulties and so forth, but if we take a closer look, like in the Sangha that I belong to, there's going to be 3 years in October that we've been together. yeah, we've had difficulties. We've had to be extremely patient with each other and so forth, and tolerant and so forth, and with other devotees. And in isolated cases, we've had to, ask devotees to form their own sangha, because they were too much of a disturbance, right? But, we have made incredible progress also, It's amazing to see the devotees, how much they have learned. They have learned Sanskrit verses. They write incredible articles. We have, we have come up with these publications, the Vuelta Krishna means back to Krishna, right? This is number 2 issue. This is number 3 issue. And this is number 1 issue. And we're progressively getting better. The number 4 issue is going to be much better. We're going to have a nice logo and so forth. We expect to print it in Spanish and hopefully other English also, other than Spanish, and other languages. So we are getting better, and the fact that we're taking part in this wonderful program that you have managed to put together, that's another sign. We're improving, we're getting better. So I'm not sure whether, things are as bad or things are worse. A lot of the devotees in 77, when I joined, 78, etc., they had no idea of this.
Hare Krishna. Sorry, we just had 2 new devotees come. Wonderful 2 new devotees. We'll introduce you to them later. Yeah, go ahead, Prabhu. Sorry for that interruption.
So I'm not sure whether things are bad now or worse than then. I don't think so, really. I think that we're progressing. I think that we have to give ourselves, we have to give Krishna and Prabhupada all the credit, of course, right? They're not giving up on us, and they're rescuing us more and more. So yeah, we're linking up. I see how now that we know each other more, how our Sangha here based in Mexico with friends as far away as Canada and China and Serbia, etc., how we can work together. Now we've gotten to know each other, we can get to know each other more, and we can link up in unity and cooperation. So that is excellent. It's very, very powerful. And so I think that things are getting gradually, progressively better.
I don't know if you can hear us, brother. We're experiencing some internet problem when we have a low connection. Can you hear me, brother?
I can hear you.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments devotees would like to make?
I'd like to say that it is true. I was on this planet, in 71, and I joined in Portland, Oregon in 71, and it was very magical. All the devotees were fired up. I immediately actually took to the Krishna consciousness very enthusiastically, just because of the association around me. And the devotees were just cooperating together very nicely. And I do believe that it was just because of the magic, the fact that Prabhupada was on this planet. And that devotees were regularly seeing him. And that just had a lot to do with our enthusiasm. But I also believe that he could be more present with us right now. The more we just cooperate together, that's the real magic. Prabhupada said, if you love me, you cooperate together for me. So if we can still have that same, we can experience just this very same ecstasy, the same, even more presence of Prabhupada in our lives, the more we cooperate together to spread his mission. And when we should listen a lot to his tapes. We can watch videos of him, and by Krishna's mercy, he's present in his videos and his lectures, and he's fully present there. He's still fully present for us. One reporter once says, Prabhupada, So what will you do? What will happen when you leave, when you die? And Prabhupada said, I shall never die. So that we should know, we can have Prabhupada's, I'm convinced we can have Prabhupada's association more now than ever before. More now than ever before, because in Krishna consciousness, you're always advancing more and more. So he's just getting more and more. He's a preacher forever in this world, and that's what he is. He's the preachers. They stay here in this material world preaching. That's their mission, and they just become more and more ecstatic. And the more we just cooperate together for him, and believe in him, and hear from him, we can become just as ecstatic, more ecstatic than ever before. And that's what I have to say. Haribo.
Haribo.
Yeah, Haribo. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, that was so good actually. And really it's such a simple fact when you sit down and look at it, because when Prabhupada left his body in 1977, we had actually, and the society as a whole had very, very little association with Prabhupada. I mean, very few, I would say probably 15, 20% of Prabhupada's books were out, no letters were available, no tapes were available, nothing practically, 20% is probably being kind. So now, since Prabhupada left, and right now, we have another 80% more of Prabhupada availability through his word, through his Vani, through his kirtans, through his letters. So actually, Prabhupada is here so much more. The only problem, we have to accept this fact, is not on Prabhupada's side. It's on our side. How much do we want to be with him? How much do we want him to be in our daily life, in our daily ears? And how much do we really want to bring him into life in our own personal relationship with him? And that's really, as Prabhupada said in the famous interview, the only thing missing is Krishna consciousness on this planet. So the only thing missing in his society is more Prabhupada consciousness. That's missing. Prabhupada consciousness is there, but small. But we can do much more at increasing that Prabhupada consciousness, and this is part of the goal for this festival, is to increase our individual and collective Prabhupada consciousness. Are there any other comments or questions?
I'd just like to add that it's natural, right? That the philosophy is that when the pure devotee departs or leaves his body, it's natural that the level of Krishna consciousness is going to go down, but that's temporary, And we are becoming much more aware of all these things, and we are making progress. We should not disregard, all the progress that we're making. Like I said, this what we're doing right now. It's just so incredible, And I'm sure it's going to continue.
Yeah. This is in one sense just the beginning.
This is just the beginning, exactly. The best part, Amos the car means the time that we are most productive is between 60 years old and 70 years old.
Wow.
Right? I think that in the spiritual culture, it may be between 70 years old and 80 years old. I'm 70, so
you're just
it's the time for me.
Let's go.
Unity and cooperation, Jayananda Prabhu. Unity and cooperation, Jayananda Prabhu. Being humble, consider ourselves a worm in the stool of the worm. Very humble, very meek. Wrought and fallen. Because at the end of the day, that's what we really are, Prabhu. So Prabhupada, reminded us of that when he said that in a very emotional state. Please consider yourself wrought and fallen. Be careful. What is your wealth? What is your value? He said. Be careful. You're dealing with Krishna, because he didn't want us to suffer. So really, really good. It was really, really good. thank you so much for what you're doing, what you have done, and you're continuing to do. And let's try to link up more and more.
Absolutely. All the inspiration comes from devotees.
You can come to Mexico, or you can come to the north of Florida. I'm trying to make all facilities so we may have 20, 30, 40, 50 devotees stay without having to pay anything. And we can have another.
That's the way we're going. Prabhupada festival every 3 months around the world.
Online, we can do it. We have these classes, like I said. We were supposed to have one now. And I think our temple president from Mexico is online. Maybe he can pick up the mic and say Hare Krishna to the devotees.
Actually, devotees here are waiting to go. Is that what? Krishna Kishore Prabhu?
Yeah, I think I saw him. Are you there, Krishna Kishore Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Sorry if I cannot speak too much, but I don't want to interrupt the devotees in the japa. Here is 4 a.m., something like that. So please accept my humble obeisances, all devotees there. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol.
Good, Haribol. Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, Mexico is a beautiful place, huh? Papayas, mangoes, bananas, they just grow on the side of the road. You don't have to pay anything for them.
Okay, then we end the class there and look forward to seeing you in 4 hours, 15 minutes for the next class. What is the next class? Let me just check. What's the next class, anybody? 1 minute. I'll get it, okay. The next class.
Definitely, I
okay.
plan to be at as many of the classes as possible. Hopefully all of them.
The next class is also a wonderful class by Ishan Prabhu. He's Prabhupada's old devotee, and he was given the order to make the mridangas with Prabhupada. And from my talks with Ishan Prabhu, he's really a special devotee and got this special talk to share with us about personal relationship with Prabhupada. So
he was Prabhupada's personal secretary for a whole month, I think.
Really, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, what a wonderful topic. Just as we finish this one on that note, it's going to continue in the next one with loving Srila Prabhupada. Jai.
Jai Haribol. Thank you,
Jai
Prabhu. Chakapa Durubhya Shah. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Haribol.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.